The countdown has begun, and it is far shorter than anyone in the scientific community is comfortable with. In exactly 12 days, on December 19th, 2025, the interstellar object known as 3I Atlas will reach its closest point to Earth before beginning its long, silent retreat into the dark. For months, the official narrative has been steady. This is a comet, a rock from another star, a fascinating but ultimately dead piece of debris. But as the date approaches, the data flowing in from our most advanced instruments is telling a completely different story. 3I Atlas is doing things that comets simply do not do. The comfortable explanations are evaporating, replaced by a set of anomalies so stark and synchronized that they suggest we are looking at something far more complex than a dirty snowball. The object has turned electric blue, it is emitting a steady radio hum, and it is pointing a structural lance directly at the sun against the flow of the solar wind. We aren't watching a rock die, we are watching a machine operate. Let's start with the visual evidence that has astronomers staring at their monitors with a mixture of confusion and dread. On November 30, the Hubble Space Telescope captured the highest resolution image of the object to date. At that moment, 3I Atlas wasn't just a blur, it was a defined shape, and protruding from that shape was something that standard physics says shouldn't be there, a sunward anti-tail. This wasn't a small smudge or a trick of the light. It was a distinct, sharp lance of material extending over 60,000 kilometers, 5 times the diameter of Earth, pointing directly at the sun. In standard cometary physics, an anti-tail is usually an optical illusion caused by Earth passing through the orbital plane of a comet. But illusions are temporary, they shift as the viewing angle changes. This feature is persistent. It has been there since July, locking onto the sun like a compass needle. This is the smoking gun. The solar wind is a relentless blast of charged particles moving at 400 kilometers per second. It strips everything away from the sun. Untails, dust tails, they all flow downstream. For an object to maintain a 60,000 kilometer spike pointing upstream, directly into the teeth of that solar gale, requires a mechanism that natural outgassing cannot explain. It looks less like a tail and more like a stabilizer, or perhaps a focused jet fighting against the current to maintain orientation. If this were a natural event, the solar wind should have shredded that feature weeks ago. The fact that it remains sharp and defined implies a density or a magnetic coherence that defies the dusty snowball model. Then there is the color. When 3I Atlas first entered our system, it was a deep, dark red. This made sense. Interstellar objects are baked by cosmic rays for millions of years, developing a thick, organic crust that absorbs blue light and reflects red. As it approached the sun, that crust began to burn off, and the object turned green, a signature of diatomic carbon vaporizing. Rare but natural. But now, as it speeds away from the sun, retreating into the freezing void where it should be cooling down, 3I Atlas has turned electric blue. Blue light is high energy. On Earth, we see it in the heart of a welding torch or a nuclear reactor's Cherenkov radiation. In space, blue usually means ionized gases burning at extreme temperatures. But 3I Atlas is moving away from the heat source. By all laws of thermodynamics, the object should be cooling. The glow should be dying. Instead, the blue is intensifying. This implies an internal energy source. This has led to the afterburn theory. Some researchers are quietly suggesting that the object used the sun for a gravity assist and Oberth maneuver, where a spacecraft fires its engines at the point of closest approach to maximize its speed boost. If that is what happened, the persistent blue glow could be the lingering signature of a propulsion system that is still active, an exhaust plume of ionized gas pushing the object faster as it leaves the system. The chemistry itself is equally baffling. The Atacama Large Millimeter Array, ILMAVE, has been sniffing the gas cloud surrounding the nucleus, and the results are shocking. The cloud is rich in methanol and hydrogen cyanide. These are not random space rocks, these are prebiotic compounds. Methanol is a fundamental building block for life, and hydrogen cyanide is a crucial precursor for amino acids. But it isn't just the presence of these chemicals, it is the ratio. ALMA found a methanol to hydrogen cyanide ratio of 124.1. To put that number in perspective, that ratio is astronomically high. The only other object we have ever seen with a chemistry even remotely similar was C2016R2, a comet so bizarre it forced us to rewrite textbooks. But that comet came from our own Oort cloud. 3I Atlas came from another star. This specific cocktail of chemicals has reignited the debate. Is this a friendly gardener or a serial killer? Is the object a panspermia vessel designed to seed worlds with the starter kit for life? Or is it spreading poison? If you were designing a probe to seed a galaxy, you wouldn't send fully formed organisms. You would send the raw ingredients methanol, carbon, nitrogen frozen in a shell designed to release upon warming. You would load the vessel with exactly the mix we are seeing now. The fact that this specific chemical signature is being released right now as it passes the habitable zone feels like a programmed event. It survived the deep freeze of interstellar space, survived the furnace of the sun, and is now deploying its payload exactly where it matters most. And the release of this material is not happening in a messy spray. It is precise. On November 10, the Meerkat radio telescope detected radio emissions from the object at 1665 and 1667 MHz. The internet immediately lit up with theories of a signal. The official explanation was quick hydroxyl radicals naturally emitting radio waves. But the devil is in the details. Natural radio noise from a tumbling, outgassing comet usually fluctuates. As the comet spins, active vents turn toward and away from Earth, creating a pulse. The signal from 3I Atlas was steady. It was a constant hum. If this is natural outgassing, it means the venting is perfectly distributed across the entire surface of the object, which is statistically unlikely. Or it means the object is spinning so fast that the signal averages out. But there is a third option. A steady carrier wave is exactly what you would expect from a piece of technology in standby mode. It is the hum of a system running in the background, a relay waiting for data. Perhaps the most disturbing piece of evidence is the debris field. 3I Atlas is not just shedding gas and fine dust, it is shedding pebbles, heavy particles. In the solar system, fine dust is meaningless. The pressure of sunlight sweeps it away in weeks. But heavy particles stay. They resist the solar wind. They settle into stable orbits. They become a permanent part of the solar system's architecture. Why does this matter? Because if you wanted to leave a mark, or a monitor, or a seed, you wouldn't use dust. You would use gravel. You would use macroscopic objects that can survive for eons. The timing of this dump is suspicious. 3I Atlas began releasing this heavy material only after it survived the sun. It survived the sterilization of perihelion, and then, as it turned to leave, it opened the cargo bay. It feels like a trigger event. I have arrived. I have survived the star. Release the payload. We have to consider the trajectory. 3I Atlas is on a hyperbolic orbit, moving too fast to be captured by the sun. It is just passing through. But the way it is passing through is making orbital dynamicists nervous. The object is showing non-gravitational acceleration. Comets do this naturally when gas jets push them off course. But cometary thrust is messy. It makes the object tumble and wobble. 3I Atlas is smooth. The acceleration is consistent, linear, and controlled. And that impossible anti-tail acts suspiciously like a stabilizer, keeping the object oriented correctly while the thrust is applied. A.V. Loeb, the Harvard physicist, suggested months ago that if an artificial object entered our system, it might use the sun for a gravity assist. It would dive deep, fire its engines at the closest point, and slingshot out. 3I Atlas did exactly that. It dove deeper than most comets dare, surviving a proximity that should have torn a loose rubble pile apart. It didn't disintegrate, it brightened, it shifted color, and it emerged with a trajectory that is slightly, maddeningly off from a pure gravity curve. The silence from the major space agencies is becoming a data point in itself. Usually, when a new comet or asteroid does something weird, you see press releases and colorful diagrams explaining the phenomenon. This time we are getting raw data dumps and silence. The Deep Space Network is active, we can see the dishes moving. But the interpretation is missing. This suggests that the models they are running behind closed doors are failing. They cannot explain a blue breaking maneuver with rocks and ice. They are likely running simulations of artificial drag, simulations of controlled entry, and they are terrified of what those simulations are concluding. If you tell the public a rock is slowing down, you have to explain how. And right now, aliens is the only variable that fits the equation without breaking the laws of physics. We have 12 days left. 12 days until December 19, when the object reaches a distance of 1.88 astronomical units from Earth. It is far, roughly 269 million kilometers, but it is within range. Every major telescope, from the James Webb in deep space to the radio arrays in the desert, will be pointed at that electric blue dot. We are looking for the Hall. The glowing coma, that cloud of gas and dust, acts as a curtain wrapping the nucleus in a fog thousands of kilometers thick. We know the core is there, maybe 5 kilometers wide, but we cannot resolve the shape. On December 19, the geometry changes. The sun will illuminate the object from the side, potentially allowing us to see through the thinning tail. If the shell cracks, if the gas clears for just a moment, we might see what is really at the center of that blue cloud. After that, the door closes. By March 2026, 3I Atlas will cross Jupiter's orbit. By the early 2030s, it will be a ghost in the outer dark, silent and unreachable. Here is the terrifying part of the narrative that no one wants to say out loud. It isn't stopping. It isn't slowing down. It isn't hailing us. It is doing exactly what a scout would do. It mapped the system. It sampled the solar wind. It marked the location of the habitable zone. And now it is moving on. If those heavy particles are markers, if that anti-tail is a communications relay, if that steady radio hum is a data stream, then we have just been cataloged. The friendly gardener hypothesis says it brought life. The serial killer hypothesis says it brought poison. But the scout hypothesis says it brought data back to someone else. The blue glow is the taillight of a vessel leaving the harbor. It didn't come here to talk to us. It came here to look at us. And as it accelerates into the freezing void, leaving a trail of heavy seeds and unanswered questions in its wake, the only thing we know for sure is that the universe is watching. December 19 is our last chance to look back. After that, we are just part of the database.